What happens when you mix a Paladin with a Warlock? You get the Locked In. This is a classic D&D multi-class that we're going to do on the channel. We're going to do level by level guide as always and a battle tutorial. Let's get started. Our first class will be in Paladin. For the reasons we get our Divine Sense, Lay on Hands for a nice little healing buff, as well as things like our Wisdom saving throw proficiency and a Charisma saving throw proficiency, which is very useful when it comes to having a Warlock. And then we also get things like the armor proficiencies, the shield proficiency, and martial weapons. For this build to work, your best bet here is to go with Oath of Vengeance. You can really do anything, but I think Oath of Vengeance just works a little bit better. You get Inquisitor's Might, so your and allies' attacks do an additional 2 radiant damage and can daze enemies, which is insane. And Oath of Vengeance Tenets. You are there to fight the greater evil, exerting your wisdom, identify the horror morality in any given instance, and fight for it. Okay, with your ability points, this is the base starting for the character you get when you pick the Crits Hireling. I would just keep this as is slightly, but I would get rid of Dexterity. And I would probably put it into Constitution. It does take 2 points, unfortunately, so you are now on 0 Dex. But having 17 Strength, being so close to being max, is great. Charisma is obviously ideal for all our spells, whether it be Warlock and Paladin. Constitution, we do still need to be tanky, so I think your best bet is to buff this. And for your proficiencies, I actually like what it starts you with here, Athletics and Insight. I think these are the 2 best out of the options you have. Now, for our level 2, we are taking Paladin once again. We're sticking with it. This gives us access to our Divine Smites, and these are phenomenal. It's basically extra damage just for attacking. It's so good. We also have access to a bunch more level 1 spells. So, for your passive, it depends on what build you want to do. Defense will give you +1 to your armor class wearing armor. This is very helpful. If you're going sword and board or sword and shield, dueling, when you're wielding a melee weapon that is not two-handed or versatile on one hand, and no weapon in the other, you do an additional 2 damage with that weapon. So this is, again, very, very good. Very Shadowheart-esque in my playthrough. But I would go to Great Weapon Fighting. When you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack with a two-handed melee weapon, that die is re-rolled once. I think two-handed weapons are just incredible in this game, and I think this is a great fighting style to have. Okay, for your spells, I would take Cure Wounds, because every paladin needs Cure Wounds. I would take Shield of Faith. Protect a creature from attacks, increases armor class by 2. It is a concentration, but this spell has saved me so many times. I cannot rave about it enough. I would take Thunderous Smite, push your target 3 meters away and possibly knock it prone. Again, incredible. And I would take Divine Favor. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4 radiant damage. This is really good if you don't want to use up all your smites yet. You can use 1 spell slot. Keep this for 3 rounds if you can keep your concentration. Your other option would be Bless up to 3 creatures. They gain a +1d4 attack to attack rolls and saving throws. Either of these, I think, is a great option for you to have. Okay, from here, now we are multi-classing into our Warlock, because we now have our Smites. And obviously, we are going to tell Eldritch Blast. It is one of the best spells ever in D&D, in my opinion. It's amazing. It's just phenomenal. And I think Blade Ward is also amazing. You can throw it up, and for 2 turns, you only take half damage from bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. Again, a great attack. If you can if you haven't got a Locked In as your main character, and your main character is talking, you can always cast this if you switch to your character during the dialogue. Get this up, and it'll last for 2 turns while you breeze through the dialogue. You have to be quick, though. And for this, I think the Fiend is the best subclass you can take for the Locked In. The range of spells it will give you later on, such as things like Fireball, I think things like that are just incredible. Now, if you are doing a Warlock, obviously you're going to take Hex. You throw this up, it is a concentration and a bonus action, but you deal an additional damage on that target every time you hit. You can also give it a disadvantage on an ability check of your choosing. Hex is phenomenal. And now there are 2 things I would do here, to be honest. I would either do Armor of Agathis, because I think having the 5 temporary hit points as well as cold damage whenever someone hits you is just so OP. Or Arms of Hadar. Prevent the target from using reactions. Again, this is really good if you want to try, if you've got people stuck in melee with the enemy, you could throw this on that enemy, and then your other characters can run away without getting those attack opportunities. This is really a good spell if you're in a life or death situation. I think Armor of Agathis is really good if you just want to dash around the battlefield and just tank hits for everyone. We are sticking with Warlock for level 4. And for this, I would go with Arms of Hadar, like I was saying. The other option, Hellish Rebuke, is amazing. However, I think your best bet is to save your reactions for your smites if you can. And when it comes to the Eldritch Invocations, in my opinion, there are only 2 to pick here. Agonizing Blast. When you cast Eldritch Blast, add your Charisma modifier to the damage it deals unless it is negative. I think that's phenomenal. And Repelling Blast, I have used this so much in my playthrough to win battles. You can just push enemies off of balconies, off of beams, anything, take full damage and they die. It's insane. Okay, we are now our Pact boon, which we'll get into in a second. For your spells, again, so many very, very good options. I would take, in my opinion, Mirror Image. Now for spells, there are so many good options, but in my opinion, I would now take Hellish Rebuke at this point, just in case you're not in melee with people, you can still get that reactionary damage. And we have to pick our Pact boon. And for this, the option we are taking is Pact of the Blade. You can summon a Pact weapon, or bind the one that you're wielding, making it magical. Pact weapons use the wielder's spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength or dexterity. So now we'll use our charisma instead of our strength for these abilities and for our attacks and stuff. This is where it becomes a bit more interesting, because we've really had to rely on our strength being so good to do this. So from here we would pick Pact of the Blade, and then before we level up again, we would go to Withers. Okay, and from here we would respec at this level into something that looks similar to this. So like 13 strength now, and then take a 17 in constitution and a 16 in charisma. Or you could reverse this and do something along the lines of 16 constitution and 17 charisma, so you do extra damage. This would be how I'd play it out personally. I'd leave my stats like this. And then we're just going to follow what we just did, exactly to the T, but now we'd get to use our charisma instead of our strength for attacks. The only downside to this is we are now more susceptible to things like pushing damage and strength saving throws, and so that stuff will be less. But we do have to respec at this point to make this build really work. Okay, now that we've respec with Withers, we can continue leveling our character. We are going to go into Warlock level 4. This will give us our feat and a new cantrip. For the cantrip, I would personally take something such as Minor Illusion. This can be pretty useful to distracting a lot of people if you need to. The other option you could take would be something like Bone Chill. I do think this is really good as well, prevents your target from healing. And if they're undead, and there are a lot of undead in this game, you can then do disadvantage on their attacks. So between these, I would take Bone Chill. And then as a main spell, I'm a big fan of Misty Step. I think this is phenomenal, so we will be taking it. Now for this, there are 2 options. If you are doing a 2-handed build like I am, Great Weapon Master is amazing. When you land a critical hit, or to kill a target with a melee weapon attack, you can make another melee attack weapon as a bonus action that turn. Attacks with melee weapons you're proficient with and are wielded in both hands can deal an additional 10 damage at the cost of a -5 attack roll. Now this is toggleable on and off like it says, so you can just debuff that almost, but it is a bit risky. Your option would be to do an ASI ability check. I will take Great Weapon Master though, and we're going to take the risk. Okay, level 5 Warlock now, so we're level 7 overall because we want Deepened Pact. Pleased with your service, your other Wardy Patron added a new bonus to the terms of your Pact. Blade Pact holders gain additional attack with their Pact weapon. The Pact of the Chains Familiar also gains an extra attack. Pact of the Tome Warlocks can cast Animate Dead, Haste, Cool Lightning once per long rest. So we gain the extra attack from this, so it's now 2 attacks per round, which is, in my opinion, incredible. And for when it comes to the spells you're going to pick, there are 2 options here that I would go with. If you want high DPS, you're going to want to take Fireball. If you want to be a bit more controlling on the battlefield, Hunger of Hadar is one of my favourite spells in the game. Creatures within this black sphere are blinded and take damage at the end of their turns. Creatures starting their turn in the area take 2 to 12 cold damage, and creatures ending their turn take 2 to 12 acid damage. This area is difficult terrain, so people will really struggle to walk through this, and they take damage at the start and end of their turn if they are within the Hunger of Hadar. I put this on Will in the game, and it saved so many battles for me and made so many battles 1,000 times easier. I cannot stress enough that this is one of the best spells in the game. Okay, we get one more Eldritch Invocation now. There are many options you can take here, but I really like Fiendish Vigor. You can cast False Life on yourself at will as a level 1 spell without spending a spell slot, and that's 7 extra hit points. And 7 hit points might not sound like enough, but I promise you, when you're taking lots of damage, 1 HP is what can be the difference between staying up and having to be revived or healed, anything like that. Now we are back to our Paladin now that we have reached level 8, because we are going for a third attack per turn, which we'll get to shortly. So, Paladin level 3, and we have more options for spells here. Now, we've got all these ones still, and it wants us to have Divine Favour, which I do think is still a good option. Okay, so we need to take one more spell for our spellbook, and I would take Wrathful Smite. We also now are Paladin level 4, so our Lockdown is really come into play, and we get Lay on Hands charge. Gain additional Lay on Hands charge to heal yourself or your allies. Again, Lay on Hands is such a good spell, really helpful. But the other benefit is we get another feat. Now, as I said before, you could take the ASI ability, or the other one I would do, if you don't want to go for the ASI, I would do Savage Attacker. When making many attack rolls, you roll your damage dice twice and take the highest result. Really depends on how you want to do this. You can either go full-blown, try and get max damage with a lower attack, or we can buff our attack. So for example, we could take our Charisma to 19, for example. This would help with both our melee attacks and our Eldritch Blast, that sort of thing. Options really yours. At this point, I would probably just do the ASI. And there you go, we have another extra attack, which is what we've been waiting for. We also have a bunch more abilities here. And for your level 2 spells, I would take Lesser Restoration, and I would take Aid. We are sticking with Paladin at level 6 for Aura of Protection. You and any nearby allies gain +0 bonus to saving throws. Now it's equal to our Charisma modifier, I believe, which would be a +4. And at this point, I would take Magic Weapon. And our final ability or leveling we're going to do is in the Paladin class once again for Relentless Avenger. If you hit an enemy with an opportunity attack, your movement speed increases by 4.5 meters on your next turn. Now that is our build for the Lockdown. We're going to go into combat. We're going to grab him a two-handed weapon, like a sword, and I'll see you there. Okay, so we bought some equipment for our dude. He has an AC of 20 now. Because we are a Warlock, we can do stuff like this before battles. So we could do False Life. So we now have 7 temporary hit points. And we can now conjure up our weapon. So Pact of the Blade, summon a weapon to your hand. It uses the wielder's spellcasting ability modifier, and its damage is magical. So we will summon, for this, a greatsword. Okay, now that is done, we can then go into battle. So we now have a magical sword. So let's check this build out. Okay, so as you just saw, we just got hit. However, there is no point doing a Hellish Rebuke, because the guy is immune to fire. But we will just show you how you do it anyway. That would be an option, but again, doesn't really work because unfortunately he is immune to it. Okay, so as you can see, we are now here. And we have a few options for people we can attack. Now, Great Weapon Master leaves us with a 30% chance to hit. I'm not a big fan of that, so we are going to switch it off here, as I showed you, and now suddenly we have a 55% chance. And with our attacks, we will see what our smites are like. So Divine Smite deals an additional 1d8. This scales based on what spell you cast at. So let's do a 3rd level. And we just did that much damage. Now, because of all our extra attacks, we can do this again. So, we could do Branding Smite, or we could go back into our Divine Smite, and another 3rd level. And we again have the option of doing this again. So you can see we just did almost 50 damage in one round just from all these attacks. Okay, so we're back in this round. Now let's close the distance before we do anything else. And you'll see we have a bunch of things here. So for example, we could cast up Hunter's Mark. We could do Hex with a bonus action, like I said before. So if we were to put Hex, say, on the Earthman Meridian. And then we can come in here with an Eldritch Blast. And we can do a couple of blasts there. Unfortunately we had disadvantage and I'm not entirely sure why. Okay, so now we're back to our turn when the enemies are dwindling down, and the whole point of this build is to allow you to do extra damage. So for example, on this turn we are going to cast Hunter's Mark. And now this will stack with our damage from Smite. So we go to Divine Smite, 2nd level. Somehow we keep missing. We'll go again. There you go, we did 28 damage that round. And now for our 3rd and final strike. And you'll see, overall we did a bunch. If we would have hit our 1st attack, we've done even more damage. But overall, dwindled him down to such little health. that our rogue can just come in here with his offhand attack and very casually just take him out. Okay, so we still can't reach him, but we could do something such as Bone Chill, one of the abilities we took. Big chunk of damage, and now he's blocked from healing for a round, which would then allow us to kill the dude like this. Now that overall is how this build works. It's very good at using your charisma for boosting your melee attacks or throwing around Eldritch Blasts. Let me know if you've enjoyed this guide. Any change you'd make, let me know in the comments below. Please drop me a like, helps me amazingly. If you're new, not subscribed but you'd like to, that'd also be amazing. And hopefully guys, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.